do business with people they like. And so building those relationships and building a community feel where people feel, hey, I need some help.
Nothing beats getting in a room together and just throwing stuff up on a whiteboard and seeing what sticks and what slowly slides off as you investigate it further.
It's one thing to be able to say, hey, we know what the issues are. It's something entirely different to be able to say, and here's what the really smart CEOs are doing about it.
Welcome to The Mind Behind. We regularly talk to people with an interesting story, kind of an interesting background, and today's no different. We tend to be speaking to people from business, from politics, from sport, and that's what we've done over the last kind of 4 or 5 years. And today I'm really lucky that I've got Terry Hamill back on. Not spoken to Terry for quite a while. Terry's a good friend, to tell you up front, and also an extremely successful businessman. He expanded BNI through parts of the UK, Portugal, Brazil at one point, and is also an expansion partner at CorporateConnections, which is really looking at about how companies and leaders of companies at a much higher level, very successful, larger businesses, but how they still leverage their networks. And Terry has done that tremendously throughout his whole career. So if you want to find out how a hairdresser from Paisley in Scotland becomes such a significant player within the global network of BNI and CorporateConnections, stay on board. We'll also talk about imposter syndrome, how Terry 2.0 was created, and I don't want to do a spoiler in that one. It's a really interesting story. We talk about family, upbringing, background, love within business and outside of business. Really interesting chat. So hold on, stay tuned to hear more from Terry. So Terry, good to see you again.
Awesome to see you, Graham. I think it's a number of years since we were on.
It is. What's happening? I'll tell you what would be a really good place to start is just tell us who's Terry Hamill. Give us a bit of background. How did you get to kind of where you are at the minute? As far back as you want.
Well, I can say this as a fellow Scot. I was there's a great word back in the day. I was a toe rag, actually. I was a nuisance at school. I never fitted into the whole model of school. So I ended up becoming a hairdresser. It was the only job I could get. And I became a charmer because I was cutting people's hair, perming their hair, that kind of stuff at the age of 15. Actually, I was Scotland's youngest qualified hairdresser at the time. It was a bizarre story. And then worked there for a few years, got this whole communication, empathy thing, talking to clients, dealing with all sorts of, topics that you would do as you're cutting someone's hair. And then got into the networking game. I mean, it was a bit of a short route, but got into the networking game. And I think if you can communicate with people and you are genuine and you have got, actually, if you've got a Scottish accent, it also helps as well. People like the Scottish accent. So I started to build business groups back in Liverpool, where my wife is from. And that was 1999, back in the days when we both had dark hair and hair, Graham. And then I started countries. So I started regions, and then I started Portugal, and then Brazil, and then Spain. So I look after about 3,000 Portuguese clients, and they pay me a membership to be part of my organization, my networking. And through all that stuff, and hence by this background I'm using today, I teach leadership and vulnerability for very large companies in Portugal. It's a thing that Singularity University is from the X Prize. It's the Futurists, and they brought me in as one of their faculty speakers. So I'm doing a lot of those talks, and I'm maintaining about 3,000 members through franchisees. And, I'm just living the good life. I've never played golf better. I survived cancer. You might want to ask me about that a little bit, but I survived cancer last year, which was a crazy roller coaster. It helped me make some different changes in my life. But, I'm just a dropout that was charming enough to kind of work my way up and do pretty well. And I'll probably exit. I'll probably sell in about 5 years and play golf every single day and have lunch every single day. That would be my goal. So that's where I am. That's where I am.
I'll tell you what. Let's talk about what's happened in kind of the last year or so then, and just how that's shaped and how that's changed your view. We'll come
Yeah,
back to the business in a little while, but
sure.
just curious about how that's changed your view.
Yeah. So the story itself was actually that typically men don't check. They don't go to the doctors. They don't like all that stuff. We don't like to be have any intrusions. But there was a pain in my abdomen, and I kind of thought, actually, I thought I had ripped a muscle because I was doing a bit of boxing. And the guy said, look, just go and have an MRI scan and go and have an ultrasound and just see what it's about. Never thought anything of it. So I actually went on my own. My wife's a cancer nurse, and we never even thought about it. And I went to this MRI. Actually, it was the ultrasound first. And the girl said, where is your pain? I said, well, it's kind of down here. She said, you have a lesion in your bladder, which is 3 centimeters. And I said, wow, what lesion? That you mean tumor or lesion? I never knew the term. She said, yes. I said, is it potentially cancerous? She said, it's not only is it potentially cancerous, but it's a rare type of cancer called urachal, and it's not treatable. So if you don't get surgery on that fast, there's a potential that it'll spread and you'll lose your life. So this was on a Friday and 9 o'clock in the morning. By Monday, we're in front of a urologist, 2 surgeries, one through the bladder, another one we removed 25% of my bladder and most of my old umbilical cord. And on the 12th of September, we went back, and the surgeon, who's an incredible guy, said, you have the best news ever. You're 100% cancer free. You were really lucky to get it early. So I had no idea it was cancer. This was over a span of, what was that? It was May I found out. And by 2nd of September, I'd had the 2 operations. So that's the backstory. And in terms of how it's impacted me, I'm kind of more grateful for things, and I was more grateful because the way I set my business up, me, I live and die by the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, working on the business, not necessarily in the tasks of the day. And I we call it luck or serendipity or whatever, but I built teams that made more money than me individually, but collectively, they pay me royalties. So I have a nice business that way. So I took 6 months off and the business grew, and I wasn't there. I just said to them, look, this is more important than business. I don't really care. They said, don't worry about it. We'll run it, because it kind of runs itself anyway. And, there's bits and bobs to do, but they said, look, just, you take your time off. And I did. And I had a great time. I had a great time. A couple of months, I think it was about a month after my surgery, I started playing golf again. I shot the best golf of my life. And the decisions that I made were that it's not the things that you stress about are not important, because if you're about to face death, it gives you a different perspective on kind of everything. I think it's made me a more chilled out leader. Not that I was a stressful leader, but when you're hit with something like that, and I went through highs and lows, it makes you look at things completely different. Like that's not an issue. That's a KPI, or that's your sales are up or down. It doesn't matter. What matters is you're happy, you got a good balance of your life and things like that. And the kind of final interesting part on the family front is that because my wife is a cancer nurse, she became the biggest piece of my success, which was my recovery, because of the way she treated the whole thing, So here I am. I'm back in business. I'm doing franchise reviews with my guys, but I'm doing what I want, when I want, whatever I want, with whoever I want. That's my business choices. And you know what? And someone says, oh, can you go there? And I say, I really would love to, but I've got medical appointments that day. I haven't, but I'm not going. I don't want to go to the opening of an envelope. So I think that's changed my perspective on life.
I almost can't imagine Terry Hamill, taking 6 months off. Unheard.
Yeah. And 3 of them not playing golf. That was the worst thing. And that you're right, Graham, because my mind is active. I'm constantly on. But knowing that the business was running and knowing that the family, my kids were happy, then it gave me time to take care of myself and look after myself and things like that. So a lesson to everybody, you know, just live every day as if it's your last, because you never know what's going to happen. I was really lucky though. I was really lucky. So a lot of people don't have that fortune of catching it early. So
one thing that I do know about you is that you always come across as grateful for what's around you. You've and I would have said that you've always got that calm demeanor as well. You can kind of I've seen you put fires out all around, especially when I don't know we're in the networking groups that you've got. We've got a whole lot of kind of business owners, and especially with like the CorporateConnections, even bigger businesses, who are successful in their own right, got their own opinions, views, ideas, thoughts, read different books, maybe not the E-Myth, maybe it's something else. How do you manage to motivate and kind of keep a community like that together, where it's not just kind of following, there's not a buy-in, you're not paying them a wage, they're actually paying you to create this?
Well, first of all, it's not easy because you're managing a different level of egos and a different level of demands and things like that. And it took me about a year, I think, because this project's probably about 1.5 or 2 years for me. I've been doing BNI for 25 years, but CorporateConnections is a fairly new gig for me. So I kind of thought it would be that these guys are going to be very active. They know exactly what they want to do, and it'll be almost like a BNI on steroids, that they'll want to do bigger business and things like that. And it hit me like a ton of bricks after about a year. It got absolutely zero experience in relationship building, networking, following up, structures, power teams, strategic alliances, referral partners, you know, all the things that you kind of take for granted, that because BNI does a lot of education, a lot of training. And I'd be sitting with people and I'd kind of like, I'd have to handhold introductions for them because, well, one, they wouldn't do it, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. So I'll give you an example. One of our clients wanted to partner with a massive law firm in the UK. They're also CorporateConnections in the UK. I was like, this is a perfect fit. I said, I'll put a three-way WhatsApp together, put you guys together, tee it up. I called both of them, said, look, these are the people, these are the background of you guys. You're perfect for each other. Great partnership. Oh my God, trying to nudge that along is unbelievable. But if you were a BNI member, you would have jumped on that in a minute. So they don't see and they don't see the networking thing in the same way as small business. I see it as the value. So I decide that my job is not to give them advice on their business. That's not my job. That's what you do, Graham. You do that stuff. That's not my field. My field is to handhold them, lead them down, and help them get the right networks, whether it's for business, whether it's for collaborations, or whether it's just for idea sharing. That's my job. And I think it's taken me about a year to kind of figure out that that's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to make a BNI thing. I'm trying to help them wherever they want to go, because my network is massive, 75 countries. You give me any industry, any company, I'll probably be connected or get connected with them. So that networking gem, I think it's important. But it was really a big surprise for me, Graham, that the bigger companies are successful because they're successful in their particular niche, but they're not successful in the wider thing. So that's I think where the offering is. And by the way, they actually want more fun as well. They don't want constantly all the time. So they're really turned on by good experiences, and that's something we try to help them with.
It's the larger businesses, as I've found, don't necessarily connect at that level, and there's not always a forum to be able to do it. Kind of being able to find people who are in the same position. I want to pop back onto your background and how you've moved from being a hairdresser to introducing large law firms in London or in the UK from Portugal and playing golf. I'm just was there any point kind of when you've done all these different types of transitions that you thought, nah, this is not going to work, it's too risky?
Yeah, well, I have massive imposter syndrome every day anyway. So every situation that I go into, I just don't think I'm good enough, or everything I start, I always think it's not gonna work because, I'm not good enough. But that comes back from that comes back from experience I had when I was a child, when I kind of love was taken away from me, sort of thing. So I had that inner insecurities. And I just think what has worked really well is I have upfront contracts with people that are good influencers, good human beings. So I have a friend here who's actually running for presidency of the country right now. So he's, he wants to run the kind of, not politically, but he wants to change the culture of Portugal. He's a phenomenal South African character. You should have him on as a podcast. He's a really great character.
Love to.
No, he's really fun. He's really fun. And when I met him, we aligned really well. And I said to him, look, I would like an upfront contract. I will never sell to you as long as you never sell to me, but we will help each other and extend our networks beyond anybody could imagine. And he said, that's perfect. So when I get a call from him or I call Tim, it's always about the greater good as opposed to what can we do to help each other. So I probably have about 10 people like that are in completely different industries, areas. Some are social. I play golf with a retired IP lawyer who made a lot of money, but is a mentor. And I never sell to those guys. So I think what's helped me is I've never been in a position where I look like the salesperson. I'm always in a position I look like I'm the person that's going to help them. So therefore, they open the door. I seem to get on okay with them because of empathy, and then things happen. And I would say that's a 50-50 chance. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, and that's absolutely fine. I think our job is to recruit, train, and motivate good people. Recruit good people around us, train them well, and then love them. That would be, I would change motivation now to love. I think people want a bit more security and love in their life.
Why do you think it's important to get that contract up front to say, I will not sell to you if you don't sell to me?
Because so many people screw it up, Graham. So I run a curry club, and the curry club has got 3 rules. Number 1, drink beer. 2, drink wine. 3, curry. No more effing rules. And it's a social club. And there's 650 members of that social club, and we meet in the basement of Tim's garage. It's called Tim's Garage. So there's Ferraris, there's Maseratis, there's classic Porsches, there's bikes, there's Muhammad Ali gloves. Tim created this man cave of this amazing place. So we were 22 guys in the curry club, and we built it to 650. So when someone comes and meets a character like him or many other of my friends that are like that, what they want to do is sell to them straight away. I mean, it's shameless. And I say to them, look, when you're here, the last thing you want to do is sell to any of these guys, because they switch off right away and you've lost the game.
Yeah.
So I've seen it so many times, and I've never participated in it with many of my friends. And then what has actually happened, which is the whole networking game, because you're giving to people, is you get invited to things because you're not the guy that's the pain in the backside for people. I get invited to people dinners. I got invited to become a speaker at the university, hence doing Singularity, because I'm quirky, I'm Scottish, I'm living in Portugal. All those things matter. You living in Australia, you're not an Australian, you're Scottish, so you have all these things. So I think those things have certainly helped, and I have seen many people screw it up. So that's why I think it works.
It's interesting, especially when we talk about sales. I see people being clumsy with language regularly, feeling that this is what they should do, or kind of the message that they should give, rather than just be who they are. And which actually takes me back to something you mentioned earlier, it's imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
All these situations we're talking about, meeting somebody who's running for presidency, going to a new country, standing up and talking at the to leaders and talk about vulnerability and love. All of this is kind of really out there stuff. Yeah. Imposter syndrome. How do you deal with that?
I don't think I'll ever deal with it. I think I have to accept that it's there. When I was 7, I was in a situation that my subconscious mind blocked the entire thing out. I don't know if I ever told you about it, but it was a time that I didn't remember. And I didn't know until I was 28. I didn't know that that thing had happened to me. And all I ever wanted was people to love me because that love was kind of taken away. So it was an act of abuse that happened to me that changed the direction of my life forever. So that 7-year-old boy is actually still today trapped inside me at that particular moment. And it was a really interesting conversation that I was having. Actually, it was with Tim, because I said to Tim, I feel really out of my depth here. You know, you're introducing me to all these people and stuff. And I said, I feel really insecure. And he said, man, he said, just people love you. You just be you. You're lovely. You're a great guy. Don't worry about it. So it's all easy to worry about it, to not worry about it. So I went back to my original therapist that I had when I was 28. And I was with him for a couple of years, and he helped me get over the abuse. Was really mind blowing what he'd done. He'd done hypnotherapy, but not living through it. He took me to the moment afterwards and bargained with my subconscious mind. And I went back to see him. Oh God, I mean, it must have been I was 28, so this was probably about 5, 6 years ago. I went back to see him, and I said to him, "I've got a challenge. I've got imposter syndrome. I feel uncomfortable." He said that you know that the reason for that is that your 7-year-old boy thinks you're going to leave him. It was the most incredible awareness. He said your 7-year-old boy sees you being successful, and he thinks that you're going to leave him. You're going to go away, and he won't be a part of your story. I thought, okay, so I do a lot of speaking. So when I speak, I actually have the word 7 with the V as in red. And I tell the audience, it's a bizarre thing, and I tell them afterwards, but so I have that at the beginning, it's 7. And I tell them that I love them. I start the thing, I go, "I love you." And they go, well, why is he telling us that? You know what I mean? It's like he's lost his mind. And I said, I love you. I said, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to 7, who's my inner child. And that has bridged the gap between my acceptance of where I'm going to that traumatic thing that happened to me as a child. So, and it really worked. And he said, he's scared that you're going to leave him. So include him into all the things that you do. And I think that's why we got involved in the schools, because we've got 4,000 kids now in schools in 12 countries, and we support them, called the Brave Generation Academy, which is a hybrid school. So that passion of seeing those young kids feeds my energy of also my inner child. So it's a crazy world out there. So that's the answer.
I tell you, we're probably going down a route I didn't expect to go down with this, and because the word love has been brought up a few times, I'm just curious. We're building a business community, when we're building kind of networks, when we're building people around us, and I'm trying to keep away from kind of the process side. I'm looking at more the relationship. You think the word love is misunderstood then when we talk about it in business? That we see it in a kind of in one dimension rather than what it could really mean.
I tell you, I mean, you have cultural differences in countries. So here, the boss is the boss. Here, the hierarchy is the hierarchy, right?
Right.
In Liverpool, you wouldn't get away with that stuff. They go, listen, we'll tell you what to do. Because in Portugal, when I'm the boss of my organization, so the respect line is really quite profound. It's quite straight. So when I work with the university, with Single Out University, on the massive companies here, like the oil companies and things like that, they've got this huge cultural thing where you can't say what you want to say because you might get caught by the top.
Right.
So I go in there and talk about my abuse story in the first 5 minutes, and they go, "What the hell is going on?" And I said, "Look, the reason why I'm telling you is because, first of all, it changes the perspective of how people see me as a human being.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you where it comes from. I will never let you down. And I will always care for you, because I never had that care, and it's ingrained in me." And they go, "Oh, that's interesting." And that's why I think I'm a good networker, Graham, because I'm honest. I care about people. I give more love than perhaps I receive. So there's a fit. So the topic that I do in university for the masters actually is to say, where did they come from what are they what are they good at, what do they like, and then where do they go from that? And that's their kind of almost like their why story, the Simon Sinek why,
Yeah.
but bringing in stuff from the past that people can say, you know, I was an athlete or this happened to me. So it creates a story. And I think once people get who you are, they will move faster in your relationship with them. It's for me, it's about speed of trust. It's about me breaking down the empathy thing and getting to know you quick. And I'm just going to be warts and all. If you want to, that's fine. But I'm warts and all. And they end up going, can I tell you what happened to me? It's totally positive or negative. It's not always negative. And then what happens is we move faster. And I think the word love is not normal, but if you show love and you show compassion, I think that's good leadership.
Yeah. I'm curious then. You're fairly upfront, you're fairly open, you're more than happy to kind of share anything about Terry. What's something that maybe people misunderstand about Terry?
Misunderstand about me. I suppose it goes back into the fear I have inside, my fear of failure. You know, they see me as this, well, I think they see me as this hugely successful guy, charismatic guy, you know, always dressing a bit different than the normal, always really positive and happy. What they don't know is the highs and lows. I mean, I'm sure I've got some form of bipolar, but the highs and lows of depression and thinking, oh, am I good enough and things like that. So I think people misunderstand that I'm like this all the time. But when I'm with them, I'm on. But sometimes, actually, Graham, what happens is when I've done my best delivery, if I like next week I'm with 150 masters, at the end of that, I am at my peak. I'm the happiest ever. It's going to finish about 6:30 at night. I crash the next day. I can't get out of bed because I don't think it's because I've given it all. But what happens is my brain just switches off and says, you don't deserve it. You should, what are you thinking about? Why are you thinking you're good? And that little bugger, that 7-year-old guy is going, hey, listen, get back down. It took me a while to realize that it's just a process that goes on in my head. So I don't think people know half my story. They just see me as this positive guy.
It's interesting, actually. I've read a number of books, and if you look at like stand-up comics specifically, when you look at stand-up comedians, the amount of, in history, the amount that have been up front, as soon as they walk off stage, almost immediately, there's a crash. There's an absolute crash from it. And the public and the personal persona are completely different. So I think I know the answer to this one. I think I know the answer to this one. But who in your personal life kind of deserves more credit for your success than they get? And it feels like it's a bit of a leading question, Terry, but I know that you've got some good support around you, but who do you think maybe doesn't get enough credit?
You know, I think in any business relationship, there's always a personal relationship behind it. You know, I was very lucky, Graham, as you know, I had my mother working for me for 10 years. My sister then came into the business for 10 years. And by the way, if I wasn't Scottish, I would hire Scottish people because people love them, you know, hello, Graham, how are you doing? So that was from a business context, but I think the person that probably doesn't get the credit because they've got to handle me and handle all my stuff and all my highs and lows is my wife. And I think in a company, it's always the spouse that has the crap to deal with. And I'm really proud of her, actually. This year's been incredible. The way she said to me something, she said, I'm really proud of the way you've handled the cancer. And I said, I didn't know how to handle it. How could you how do you handle something as enormous like that? And I said, I'm really proud of you, the way you put everything together. So I think she's the one that, Elaine, by the way, I call her she, but Elaine, my wife, we've been married for 25 years. So I think she should get the credit for that.
So she's been with you since hairdresser times?
I'm once a hairdresser, always a hairdresser, as you know.
Oh, right. My apologies. So when you were full-time hairdresser.
I met her. I met her in Liverpool on Christmas Eve after me working all morning doing haircuts and perms. And I fell in love with her that day, and we've never been apart since. I only have 3 clients now, my wife, my son, and my daughter, and they don't tip me anymore. It's like it's complete, they don't pay me or tip me. So I'm a retired hairdresser. In fact, I taught her how to cut my hair. So she cuts my hair and I cut her hair. So it's quite a good gig.
It's quite interesting when you read books about successful people, when you look at kind of business leadership, there is always that personal side and that kind of that support. What do you think it would have been like without having that kind of that confirmation, that affirmation, that somebody who's behind you saying, "Yep, I'll back you on this one"?
I think it's opposite for me. It's the opposite for me because I didn't have somebody that said I'll back you. I had somebody that says I think you should do less. So my relationship with my wife was very much, we have babies, we have a life, we have a balance. You know, why are you going for that position? So I think if I had
Right.
different dynamic of a wife or not a wife, I would probably be running B&I right now and be ragged and be running all over the world and being CEO. I mean, I went for the interview before Ivan was even thinking about getting out. I would have been perfect for B&I in terms of globally,
Yeah.
but I would be absolutely shot to bits. You know, imagine if I'd be 53, I'd be dead. So I think and I made some big decisions based on our family. I came home, I was running the whole of Europe for Ivan, and I'd been traveling. It was a really horrible, the M6 had closed, the weather was bad. I arrived home at 5:30 in the morning from a LA trip, and my daughter, who was about 4, said, "Daddy, we don't see you anymore."
Ooh.
And I resigned the next day. I said, "Guys, this is my kids and my lifestyle is more important than work and business." So I resigned, and the guy said, "You did the right thing." So, but if I hadn't had my wife and my kids, I would have taken every other job and probably killed myself. I would have had good fun doing it, but I probably would have killed myself.
It's really interesting because you mentioned insecurity before, and insecurity in yourself. Yeah, secure enough to turn around and say, "This is the right decision." So
Yeah, my values are really strong. Like my values are crazy strong. Like I don't tolerate stuff. I think it goes to injustice, Graham. My mother was beaten by my father. Every time I remember it, I remember the screams. So anything where it's injustice, I am on it. So that injustice is if I see something that's not right and it fits with my values, I'll just take that decision. I'll block it out, I'll say it, and I'll call it out. And as you know, when you get to 50 anyway, you start to give less what people think about you. So I'm now 54, so I'm tougher on my decisions. I don't even get into the decisions anymore, because when you're young, you take a lot of things. You go, yeah, I'll have a bit of that, a bit of this, a bit of that, and actually think, what the hell am I doing? So I think the more mature you are, the more gracious you are at saying no.
Yeah.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
looking forward to coming to my 40s, Terry, just to be really just be really clear on this. So let's go just kind of briefly. I want to come back to this the university, what you're doing in leadership, how you're kind of the groups that you're talking to. You mentioned vulnerability, but you also mentioned that they're futurists. What do you mean by that?
So Singularity University, if you look at su.org, it was actually started by Ray Creswell and Peter Diamandis, 2 guys that partnered with Deloitte, Google, and NASA. So they're very close with Musk. They're very close with the Prince William. They're doing a lot of XPRI stuff. So they're working on artificial intelligence, genome technology, saving the planet stuff. So they work on that. And they created, it's almost like a TEDx on steroids. That's what they created, right? So the big ticket days. I mean, I think one of the sessions that they charge is $15,000 for an attendee, which is a kind of big ticket stuff. And they wanted to take all of the faculty that they had and build that faculty across the world and almost franchise it. So the university that I work at brought that franchise Singularity there. And I opened the university. I was the speaker there for the kids, for all the students. And the guy who started Singularity said, "We'd love you to come in and be a faculty speaker on leadership." I'm like, okay. I have no idea what area of leadership at all. But I'm like, okay, you know that statement, right? Say yes and figure it out later on. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I was in the UK. Like, yeah, I'll come and do it. And this lady, Andrea Sampson, who teaches TEDx people, she's an absolute wizard. She came over and they spent 4 days with us, and she came over. And my vulnerable story was about my abuse, but the way that she reframed that made it so impactful that they said, "That's your talk." And it's a 26-minute talk. She said, "That's your talk there." And I had done it in another way around. She said, "Do you mind if I give you my perspective?" I said, "You're the expert." And she did my talk, and I cried my eyes out, Graham. It was unbelievable. It was the story itself, the way you start, and the way you position it together, and the way it links to leaders, and the way it links to vision and all that. It was like this perfect, and I just cried. I was like, that is unbelievable. So they've been booking me gigs since, it's probably 4 years. I've been doing gigs in the biggest companies in the country, which is bizarre because I don't speak Portuguese. I walk in as this hairdresser, and they go, "What the, why have we got a hairdresser here?" And that's where it's all matched together. So they've asked me to go international, but I said, no, I don't want to go international. I want to stay here. It would mess up my golf and my suntan. I don't want to do it.
And that's important to you. Which is more important, the golf or the suntan?
Well, it's both, isn't it? It's a combination of both. Particularly, I mean, you're lucky because where you live, you have a lot of sun, but you know,
Not this week.
no, it's beautiful here. So, and I think that's important to take those decisions. And
Yeah.
you know, I've done. It's not like I've done that. I don't get great satisfaction from working with a bunch of company owners that don't want to change.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to what people want to change, because if I come in with something and they go, "That's mind bending, we'd love to continue it," then those are the people that want to do it. But when you're dealing with some that have just such a high ego that they're looking at it going, "Yeah, but I only want my promotion. I'm just going to smile at you because I'm going up the ladder."
Yeah.
It doesn't excite me at all. In fact, they drain my energy. So I would rather not do some of those sessions. But I think you find your way. You know that you're the
Yeah.
expert in this field anyway.
Hardly, Terry, but so do you enjoy working with the academy a little bit more then when we've got younger, kind of hungry, more curious?
Yeah. I mean, I work with the masters, so I probably delivered. Actually, the title's called "Network and a Matter of Life and Death," and it's a 2 half-day session for master students, and they will be 21 to 35, maximum 35, and they're just hungry. They're
It's great, isn't it?
hungry. They're excited.
Yep.
I feel like a vampire. You know, I go in there and they're like, "Tell me more." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. What, you want to know more?" So those are the days that I really love.
Yeah.
I think because we can have such a positive impact on their lives by saying the right thing to them at the right time.
Yeah.
I do a 2 hour session free for the leaders of tomorrow, they're called. It's like a, you know, universities have sub camps where they got like, you know, the university club or leadership or finance. So they have this leaders of tomorrow, and they say, "Look, would you come and talk to us?" And I give them 2 hours of complete free time, but I just put them in a semicircle and talk to them and get them and talk to them and talk and give them advice about them, about who they are, not any not any system stuff, just
Yeah.
people stuff. And they don't get it, you see. So it's quite unique, and I really love that. I love that part of it.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough as well, kind of working with graduate programs, with kind of early entrance into the jobs, into kind of into the career, and it's always the same. There's just how hungry. As you say, one thing that we're noticing is that people just don't have those interpersonal skills at all. Not even the base of it, not even the base of personal etiquette of how to interact with each other. So that
I think it'll change.
and it's so simple. It's so
I think something will change. You know, I know you're sort of a big advocate of the Dale Carnegie stuff. The Dale Carnegie principles are the things that I'm teaching. I mean, I love Dale Carnegie. I'm not ripping it off, but actually the principles are brilliant.
Absolutely.
And much of them are common sense, but Max, my son, has read the book. He's one of the most empathetic kids you've ever met. He's amazing. He's sensitive. How to win friends and influence people, listening more. These things. So I think if they were courses inside early schools, we'd have I think a brighter future for people.
Completely. I think it just should be compulsory. Whether it's how to win friends and influence people or anything, just those principles, that approach. Because the principles they're not rules, it's a mindset. It's a how do you approach other people? A couple of final things, Ted. I mean, I'm just thinking about a couple of things you've said in the past. I keep on coming back to this kind of the vulnerability, the imposter syndrome and everything. One thing that I've found that keeps me really grounded, regardless of who I'm working with, and I've been lucky enough to work with some very big companies globally, is kind of when I'm walking into the room, I know this could be the day that I could fail. Now, that's not being negative. People say to me, you've got to be positive. Yeah. But it grounds me. Just like, don't get ahead of yourself. Make sure that we do the basics right. And then take it from there. How do you deal with going in front of some of the companies that you do? You're talking about big ticket items. You're talking about people that are expectant of something of real value. How do you keep yourself grounded?
Well, I'm really grounded anyway because I think I'm coming at a position that I'm the least most successful person in that room. That's how I go in there, right? Yeah. I'm not trying to be the consultant that they brought in or the super trainer from Singularity. No, I go in there and I always go in an hour early. Yep. So I always had the principle of going in and someone's going to be struggling with tech or getting the coffee ready. So I go an hour early and I'll sit and I don't even mind waiting in reception and seeing. And what you learn in that hour is the challenging people, the sweethearts, and the people that you really should spend time with because it's how they act with their environment and each other. Yeah. So I set it up that way, whereas I go in and I'm learning and I just try and build empathy and I try and listen and ask questions. And I think if you pay attention, it was really funny. It's a great story. Galp is the oil company that's in Portugal. And they had a new CEO that came in to take over. He came in from Shell. This guy is great guy. I had never met this guy. So I'm talking to this other guy thinking he's the CEO. And the trainer after me said, so what are you going to do? I said, well, this is my plan. I said, I've already just talked to the CEO. He said, that's not the CEO. CEO's over there. I said, well, that's the wrong guy. I said, that's hilarious. So I went to the CEO and said, I thought he was the CEO. I said, did you? I said, yeah. He said, oh my God, that's hilarious. So we built that humor and empathy straight away. And he said, I really like what you do. Come on and do it with us. So I think just, you know what? Life's too short, Graham. People want a bit of fun, actually. I think if you're a bit funny, it's actually quite nice. There's a lovely statement that a friend of mine in Dublin, who's one of the top recruiters there, he said, Terry, you have it, but most people don't get it. If you have rapport mixed with humor, you can write your ticket anyway. I think that was a beautiful statement that he told me years and years and years ago. So feel free to be fun.
Yeah, and it's we talk a lot here about lower the bar. Stop stop putting unrealistic expectations on yourself. Yeah. You make a mistake and you think somebody else is a CEO, then and if they've reacted in a different way, then it's not somebody you're going to connect with to any great state. Yeah, I'm always aware that I'm never the smartest person in the room, and I live in my own, and I'm still not the smartest person in the room. Yeah, I think it's getting rid of that. We need to prove ourselves. That everybody's got a contribution to make.
Yeah. Now, if the world was like that, Graham, if the world was like that, there'd be less egotistical conflict, nonsense, greed, wars, these things. If everybody had that rapport and humor, at least you'd get on with stuff. We wouldn't be in this position that we are in some situations. So
I know.
I mean, that's why I'm wearing my referee's shirt.
I'm keeping it right. I've not been
Yeah.
cautioned so far. That's probably, of all the lessons, that's the one I wish I'd learned a long time ago. You don't need to prove yourself. Just get on with it. Be who you are. There's nothing else to go on there. Couple of final questions. Curious of this. This is something that we ask everybody. We're thinking about traits, and obviously you're working with young adults and early.
Yeah.
So, what traits do you believe are needed to help, people develop themselves through their career, regardless of what age they are?
Yeah.
Whether they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, it doesn't really matter. What traits do you think are really important?
Yeah, so I would say, you can wrap it around in the word of empathy, but it's also what you were saying there about trying to almost put yourself to be the best. I find as people are going through the careers, or going for that next job, or they're trying to open a B&I group or something, is that they overdo it. They literally overdo it. They sort of talking too much. It's too much and too much. In fact, to be centered, clear, and listen more gives you better results. Because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things going on, and people just switch off. So that's something that I think is a skill that you learn from maturity. I think you and I have got enough gray hairs to understand that. But if you can get a young person to be centered and listen more, they become more interesting. They become more attractive, because it's the people that come in and just railroad and just their noise. You can't cope with that. So that will be a trait. And I maybe it is empathy, maybe it is centeredness, maybe it's calmness, but wrapping it around something like that. Or just listen, just listen, ask good questions and listen. That would be one.
Quite often when we're looking at traits and I'm running programs, regardless of the kind of the level, whether it's exec or mid managers, calmness tends to be one that most people want to grab. It's quite an interesting one, and they can see kind of the value. If we're calm, it allows us to do so many different things, and just being able to step back from it. One final one. I've actually already written one down from something you said earlier about the upfront contract. That's a challenge. I'm going to stick to myself to actually talk to others about. Look, it's always good. One thing that we do on here is what's a challenge that you would set anybody listening to this to try out over the next couple of weeks, just to see if it would make a difference, either how they see things, how they interact with people, a difference for them. So what's a challenge? What's something you would ask them to give this a go?
Well, I think in terms of progress, right, I did a little bit of delving into the people that are listening to your podcast. So I would imagine that they are looking to, accelerate their career or do something better in their life or whatever it may be. And I think the uncomfortable is really where I would recommend people go, is start to hang around with people who scare them in terms of their size, their success, or their, brain power or whatever. Because when you're in those rooms, you really stretch and you're put under pressure yourself, and you learn a lot from those people. We had dinner at Tim's house, and there's a whole myriad of unbelievable talent, designers, architects, musicians, builders, whatever. And I could sit there and go, I'm a Glaswegian hairdresser here, I'm not really supposed to be here. Or asking them questions that other people wouldn't ask them, So I think if someone was going to expand their mindset or the business or whatever, start to hang around with a different set of people that are way, way better than you. And I find if they are the right people, Graham, those people will welcome you into their life.
Yeah.
If you have an upfront contract. Yeah, you're not going to sell to them.
Yeah.
You're going to, I'm really fascinated about what you do, Graham. I'd love to meet with you. I've got a few people I'd love you to meet as well. I think it'd be nice, but I'd love to get to know you. Yeah, that's fine. And just be with them, and it's not a quick thing. It could take a year, but
Yep.
you start to act differently because you're with different characters. That would be my advice.
Love it. Get into rooms with people who scare you.
Yeah.
Nice. No.
Sounds like Glasgow in the 90s, doesn't it?
Does it just sound like going to a pub? Gary, thanks again. Been too long. Really good to see you. Great to see you looking so well. And
thank you very much.
hopefully we can catch up again soon.
Excellent. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. Good luck, everybody, whatever you do.